We're going to go ahead and get started with our session today. We'll be talking about data copy and using the planning feature within Stratum. What is the planning feature? How do we access it? Where is it? And what are the requirements to get that set up? We'll talk about those and we'll show you how you can use Stratum to not only create your plans and your budgets, you can also maintain them and change them right there in the interface. So we'll go through some examples of that. Changing a plan, multiple ways of doing that, whether it's top down, middle out, or bottom up. Um, Adding new stuff to a plan, adding a new plan data through the interface. Those are the topics for today, and then we'll take any questions you might have. As far as the data hub is concerned, we'll be touching upon using the interface for planning capabilities. So we'll be up here talking about the Stratum analytics, and we'll be using the web-based analysis tool viewer to accomplish this planning capability. So if we jump it right into the interface, we can have the ability to go in, and if you notice, I can go into my menu in the upper right-hand corner, and I can go into analyst tools, and you'll see some options there that are available to me. We know we can import data from Excel or any other data source, such as a CSV or a text file or a database table even. So that capability does exist. But today we'll be looking at the data copy feature, which is a feature that allows you to copy data from an existing category and copy that into one of your target categories, whether that's budget or a forecast, sales plan, whatever you want to call it. This is something that you would be able to do and create the data yourself. So when I go into that menu, as you can see, it takes me into the data copy menu. I can probably just minimize my left frame menu there. And we can see that we've run some jobs before. So it shows me all the jobs that have been kicked off before. And we can go in and create a new data copy job as needed by selecting the new button here on the file menu. By clicking on new, it brings up the data copy menu, and that allows me to name the data copy job. So if I wanted to call this a sales plan for 2025, and I can either add or replace the data. If this was brand new, obviously we'll just be adding data because there's no data to replace, but you'll have that option later if you want to change that. Maybe you made a mistake, or maybe there's some things you forgot. We can go ahead and do a replace as needed. Who gets notified for that data copy job? So this can be yourself, if you're administrators or anybody else that you want to notify that this data copy job is run and has finished. And that's what the email will say. So you can kind of fill that out and add any other data. As you can see, it's free form text there. So that's the general tab of the data copy job that we're creating. And so now we go into the data mapping tab. So as you can see, there's different tabs up here that we want to step through. And so here's where we'll define our source category and our target category. So as I said, you can use existing data from Stratum. Might make sense to either use some sort of demand type category, such as maybe like sales, shipments, bookings might be another one, depending on what you want to use. Something that would reflect demand the best way possible, obviously. So I select my source category. In this case, I'm selecting my actual sales category. And then finally, where do I want to put this? And I could go ahead and place this into all the any other the target categories that I have access to. So as you can see, and certainly actual sales would not be one of them. So, that's something that I just have that available for creating demo data. But you would make that unavailable, of course. But I can put this into three other categories, and I certainly have more categories in the Stratum model. So as you can see, you can refine this. You can pare down the list of how many categories that this user could plop data into. So certainly there's a security aspect to this that would need to be managed and set up, and we can take a look at that too. So, so I'll select budget. And so, so now I've got my source category defined. I've got my target category defined. And now I need to tell it what measures I want to copy. So as you can see, there's a little plus sign there. I click on it. It gives me the opportunity then to go in and select, my different measures that I have available, whether it's sales units or the actual sales amount that I want to use to copy. So again, it all depends on what if you just want a dollar amount, you can certainly copy over your units. Some folks might copy over units and use their list price to calculate the amount. There's different variations, and the good thing about Stratum is that it's flexible. You can pursue these different avenues as needed. So, all right, so we then want to put in a factor here. So now it allows us to actually use some mathematical factors or operators to manipulate the data. So now we might want to increase it by 10%. How would we pursue something like that? Well, we would choose the multiplication asterisk. So that would allow us to multiply the sales amount against that factor there that we have. So if it's going to be a one, obviously it's just going to copy over the data as is. If we want to harken back to our math days, if we want to increase that by 10%, it would be a 1.1. So if we want to increase it by 5%, it would be a 1.05. So, that's how you would maneuver or calculate it. If you want to make it less, you can make it a 0.95. So now it's going to actually be a smaller amount as opposed to larger. So maybe you're anticipating shrinking as opposed to expanding, right? Well, hopefully we're all in expanding mode. So we'll go ahead and stick with the 1.1, and then we want to place it into one of my measures. And so this would clearly be, a dollar amount. And I could put it in a frozen category. I can also put it in a working category. Stratum comes with these different measures available to you. So you can have multiple iterations of this plan. So you can have, for instance, I can copy this into a frozen amount so that users um, can't change it. So this is my baseline perhaps. And then I can also copy it into my amount working and that'll allow them to play with it. And then that's something we call it working because it's still in process and users can still change it, right? If we want to add in any additional measures, maybe I want to also track my costs. Um, then I can play the same game here. This might be 0.5. Maybe my costs are going to only increase by 5%. And so I can put this into my projected cost of goods sold category. So now as you can see, you can do multiple measures, at a given time. So once you're done with your mapping, then you'll go into your time mapping. And this is where you're going to tell it what year of history to use and where to put it. So here, as you can see, we've got our source still being actual sales, of course. Our target, again, remains budget. We can now choose our time unit. So in this case, we want to tell it what level of time we want to work in. Many times, your sales plan or budget type data, forecast data, most of the time is in a monthly bucket. So normally you would choose either a month, maybe week, typically not days. It's just not normal. So again, my time unit over here would be that same month's time unit. You could also, of course, do fiscal months as needed. And then here I'll choose 2024. That's my most recent year of data that I want to use, and I will choose January for my beginning month, and December, of course, would be my closing out month. So I want that full year, right? Um, and then also for my target, we'll then tell it, what year we want to put this in. Again, it's going to be the same range, right, of months, because we want to make sure that we've got 12 months going in and 12 months going out, right? So that would be our time mapping. And so then finally, our filters. So this allows you to filter the copy job. Maybe you don't want to copy everything, right? So here I can click on my plus sign. I can decide what level I want to filter this on, um, and what division I want to create the copy for. So now, instead of doing the entire company, I'm now just doing the food service division data. So you have the ability to, and I can add in additional filters. Maybe I'd want to do a specific customer parent, so that I can just filter on certain customers as well, or products, or whatever you deem necessary, would be go ahead. You can just define your filters here so that you're really just taking, a subset of that data instead of copying the entire world. Does that make sense? So that's how you would go about doing this. You would then go all the way through, define all your criteria, and then you would save it. I can save that away, and then I can go ahead and process it as needed. I can kick off that process here. I can kick it off from the list of the jobs once it's saved. And that's how you would create a data copy job. That's how you could leverage the data coming in, um, to already coming into Stratum. It's vetted, and so now you can leverage that vetted data, that accuracy, and use that for your planning purposes as needed. So what would this look like? Once we have the data available within Stratum, how could users then go in, see it? How can they go in, manage it, perhaps change some numbers for certain accounts? Um, how would they go about doing that? Let's take a look at that. Um, we'll go ahead and run a view that we can use to change that data. So I'm going to run my view. I'm going to select a specific region where I know that data exists, and there's my data. So now I'm within a view. This is probably nothing new for some of you out there that use our product. You can see that the view gives me the data. I'm filtered on the East region, so I'm only dealing with, again, a subset of the business here. So here I can see the list of accounts for that region, and perhaps I'm, obviously the sales manager of that region. So now the data has been copied and now has been made available to me and presented to me in this fashion. I can see different snapshots of data, year-to-date sales, what that looks like, what my current month sales looks like versus baseline. What is my baseline? Last year's sales. So a lot of different data points are available here to assess my business. Another thing I can do is add in my open orders so I know what's going on with that. And so if I wanted to make any adjustments, so this is my sales. So this is what I think the business is going to do versus what the baseline says. So clearly I'm betting on a downward trend, right? Um, so a couple ways I can manage this data. Right from the get-go, I can just manage it here, right at the customer sold to level. If there's a specific sold to that I want to work with, I can then pick and choose which cell I want to go into and make any additional changes. I can type the change in. Maybe I want anticipating more activity for that month, so I can go ahead and type in, what I would anticipate that number should be. So I can manage this row by row as needed, where I can then make the additional changes or tweaks as I see fit. Maybe I'm anticipating more um, promotional activity for these specific accounts, right? So we go ahead and make that change. Real simple. We process that change up here in our process button up here, process your planning changes. So let's say, for instance, those are the only changes I want to make. We'll go ahead and kick those changes off. And now it's actually writing that data back to the database so that it gets saved for those two Harrington accounts that I made my change for. So it finished the write back, and then again, so now for October, I've got those numbers are now saved, and so now I can see that indeed they are now, and the font changed, right? So you notice that whenever I change something, the font will change into a red font, and then once it saves, as you can see, it turns back to black. Okay. So that's one way of handling my change. And then when I drill this down to see this at the product level for my 43,000 number, I can then drill in on Harrington's and I can see that for all the products that I'm selling, it keeps the ratios there. So that's my product mix. So I didn't want to mess around with that. But at the bottom here, I should see that 43,000 number. And indeed I do. So it carried that change on down into the product level and then and change those numbers as well so that when I drill to that level, obviously, the number remains the same at the total level, and then I can see my product mix as it was from my original data copy from sales, which is exactly what I want to mimic. This is my product mix for the next month. And you might argue that it's too late to change data for your sales plan for next month. And that might be true. So in that case, you can always filter out what months that you want them to work in. Obviously 3 months out, 2 months out probably is more realistic in terms of working with your data so that you have time to react, right? React to that plan. Probably I would agree with you that next month is probably not the most convenient, but for the sake of the demo, and the fact that it's right here, um, I thought it was just easier to show. So again, that's nice. We can see that it carries those numbers down. It really create instead of having juggling these numbers in Excel and trying to have them match at all these different levels. God bless you, but that's something that I don't think you'd want to deal with. So, Stratum can really help you, manage this process. Now, as I drill down, for instance, back down into Harrington's Eastern, maybe there's some further tweaks I want to make down at the product level. Maybe there's a specific product that I want to push, right? And maybe increase that sales adjustment based on my promotional knowledge for this account and for that particular product. Maybe I know there's a promotional campaign that we're giving them. Maybe there's a trade fund campaign we're doing with them. Whatever the case might be, I anticipate more uh, more demand here. Instead of the 720 baseline, I'm going to go with 1200. So now again, I'm going to kick that off, and now it's saving just that one particular little cell, right? So now I'm doing a more of a bottom up, where as opposed where I was up at Harrington's doing more of a top down. Well, now I just did a bottom up adjustment for my pork chop, my butterfly pork chops, right? So now I can see that my new number in terms of sales, this is what we're thinking that number should be. Right. So it's very flexible in terms of the levels, and you might have brand in here. You can work at the brand level. That's what we would call more of a middle out approach. It's very as long as it has data for that level for the plan. Again, you'll have that opportunity to work with it. Okay. So that's basically adjusting your number. Um, up from top down, doing bottom up. Another thing we can do is we can do like a full year, like I can work with at the grand total level. So in this case, if I want to come in and make my adjustment here at the grand total level, I can then go ahead and say, well, it's really more of for this number, so whatever, wherever I grab that, maybe maybe I do use Excel to play around with and play some games. That's something I could certainly play games here, but Excel might be a little bit more flexible in terms of playing multiple games. And then once you arrive at that number, then you can come to Stratum and store it here. This is for your analytics. This is for all your user community, to see. So this is something that would be more advantageous for you to just save that number, right, and save it here. So now I'm going to go ahead and, as you can see, I changed that number at the grand total level, and it also made that change. So, that number had to be changed up, for each customer as well, and while maintaining their ratios of business, right? So we could see Quebec Foods, some of our smaller companies, they're still small. Those numbers are still, even though they did increase, so that my total becomes 409 or close to it, right? As close as I can get to 409 or that number that I put in there. It's actually verbatim. 409,678 is actually exactly what I. So let's go ahead and do that right back here. This will be interesting. Go ahead and do that right back. And so there is our number, and it's spot on. And again, as we drill down into some of our accounts for Sumter here, we can see that, this data then it jives down at all levels. We got 2318. Again, I can manage this at product level. And if I roll back up to Sumter, we can see that indeed it's 2318 up here for the Western Division as well. So the numbers foot, we've got consistency, and so that's something that that's what this product provides, is the ability to manage these numbers and really get the ability to make it easier, right? Instead of being overwhelming. Okay. So in terms of setting this up, obviously you're going to have users that have this ability, right? So how would we set that up? How would they have the ability to go in and do some of this? So you'd have your security administrators would need to set up some of this data, or the users, I should say. You can go to the user profile, and we can see that for my particular user profile. First of all, there's a data copy. So if I want them to be able to do data copy, I can go in and allow this user to do copy all the data, or just partially. What data are they allowed to copy? So you'll be able to just specify all, or specify specific categories that they can copy. So that's one way you can manage it, so that you don't have everyone out there copying data everywhere. That would be a nightmare, right? So you're only going to have users that can do this, and you only have users that can certain categories that they can do it for. And then also back into manage things, we can go into a user role, and within the role, you'll have the ability to specify what the user can write back to those categories. So here I can see the roles for this specific role, this particular role maintenance, and we can see users that belong to it. So here's where we would add users to this role. And if we go to measures, we can see here that we now have the ability to make certain categories right back capable as well. So as you can see, we've got read capability, so they can read all of the budget measures. But which ones can they update? Well, if we want to go ahead and make them update for all of them, we can go ahead and select all of the measures that they can have update capability for as well. And this is where you'll turn that on. Again, this is the ability for them to actually write data, not only read the data, but actually update the data as well. So you're going to need to, set these up accordingly, so that, your data is protected and they can only update what you specify for them.